Industrial Dungeons is a roguelike, but the factory side only works if machines do most of the work. Without machines, you're basically just mining and processing things by hand, and that gets old really fast. So right now, most of my work has been focused on building machines that can run on their own. Most machines follow the same basic idea. They take items in, they consume fuel or electricity, they run over time, and they output something useful. Once that structure exists, everything else kind of builds on top of it. The most basic one is the furnace. It takes raw materials, burns fuel, and smelts them into processed items. It has separate inventories for input, fuel, and output, which becomes really important once automation kicks in. The furnace has several mechanics. It runs as long as it has a valid recipe and fuel. If it runs out of fuel, it stops. If the output is full, it drops the item on the ground, which means that you will have to manage it well. There is also an electric version of the furnace. Functionally, it works the same, but instead of burning fuel, it pulls energy from the electrical network. This lets me separate early game machines from later, more advanced setups. For resource gathering, there is a drill. You place it next to a resource and it slowly mines it over time. It runs on electricity, and once the resource is depleted, it just stops. This is basically the starting point for fully automated resource extraction. To actually generate power, there is a burner. It burns fuel and converts it into energy for nearby machines. So instead of directly smelting things, this one exists purely to keep other machines running. Next up, we have the solar panel. These generate a small amount of energy over time, as long as there are machines nearby that can use it or at least store it. They are meant to be simple, passive power sources, low output, but no fuel management. I also plan to add a day and night cycle to the game, which will affect the performance of solar panels. Their efficiency will be highest at noon and will decrease in the evening. For storing power, I have energy boxes. They are basically batteries. They don't do anything on their own. They just hold energy that other machines can pull from later. And finally, there's the workbench or assembler. This is where crafting happens. You select a recipe, it checks if the ingredients are available, it pulls power and produces the crafted item over time. All of these machines expose specific inventories depending on direction, and that's what will make pipes possible. In the future, items will be pushed in from one side, pulled out from another to allow for item transportation. Most of this relies on electricity as well, but I'm not going deep into that yet. Power generation, wiring, and pipes for item transportation are coming in a separate video. I'm not going to walk through every script, but the important part is the processing loop. Every frame, machines check whether they can run, that is, whether they have a valid recipe and all the required materials. If they can, they attempt to pull fuel or energy. They advance the process, potentially completing a cycle, and they stop when they reach the limit. They also update their visual state. I'm also trying to make sure machines clearly show when they are working. If it's on, it animates or plays particles, and if it's off, it's silent. Now, I'd like to talk a bit about the pixel art. I'm not that good at pixel art yet. I've only really started learning it recently. At first, I designed the machines at 16 by 16 pixels. They worked fine, but looked really modest and kind of blocky, so I bumped the height up to 22 pixels, which also lets the player walk behind them. Initially, this was going to be my energy cube, this was going to be my workbench, and I also had a 16 by 16 design for every other machine, but I don't have them anymore. I watched a few pixel art tutorials, and the big thing everyone keeps mentioning is lighting. You really have to think about where the light is coming from and keep shadows consistent. I started adding shadows under things like chimneys to fake a bit of depth and make them feel less flat. I tried using something like this for my battery, but once I placed it in the world, it looked really strange, so I decided to try something like this. For machines that are animated, like the assembler and the drill, I created 3 separate frames. And same for the drill, I created 5 separate frames and they loop perfectly. To export your animation to Godot, you have to go to File, Export, and export as sprite sheet. Then you select your output file and export it. Once that was done, I added a new animated sprite 2D node. Then in the settings, I added a new sprite frames resource. I pressed on it, I went over to the sprite frames tab, and then I pressed this button to import my sprite sheet. Then I told Godot that I have 5 frames here and that they are 16 pixels tall and 32 pixels wide. I selected my frames like this. And once that was done, I could press play selected animation from current position, and it was playing. You can also play around with this speed scale to speed it up. The animated sprite 2D class exposes 2 useful methods to play and stop your animations on command, and they are called respectively play and stop. You can also pass custom speed to them. In my code for the drill, it looks something like this. If the drill is on, I play the animation, and if the drill is off, I stop. On top of that, I'm also using particles for some machines. For smoke and similar effects, I'm using GPU Particles 2D. The texture itself is super simple, just a small white shape. I am emitting 64 particles over 16 seconds from a rectangular area that covers the chimney's exit. These particles fade out to full transparency, shift towards white, and have a bit of upward velocity, so they slowly float up. And just like with animations, it helps sell the idea that the machine is actually doing something. This is still very early, but with these basic machines in place, the rest of the factory systems finally make sense. Next up, I'll either go into electricity and wiring or into pipes and item transport. So that's it for machines for now. Thanks for watching.